All right, we are live. Welcome to the Thomas Chen Show, where we feature experts, luminaries, and trailblazers across different industries and movements. And today, we are going to talk about how we can achieve work-life balance. Yes, achieving work-life balance is certainly very important because it brings a wealth of benefits such as increasing productivity, reducing stress, and improving mental well-being. And our guest today is an expert of this topic. Who is she? Well, she is an award-winning work-life balance integration expert, intuitive business coach and consultant, as well as international best-selling author. And she helps organizations reduce stress-related absence costs and increase job satisfactions and performance. Her work has been featured in the Global Millionaire Magazine, Thrive Global, Authority Magazine, and many more. And in fact, thousands of people have benefited from her work who are now living life on their own terms as they implemented her motto of work smarter, not harder. Let's give a very warm welcome to Susanne Grant.
Yay!
Welcome on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very excited for this and really appreciate you for being here. To start off, perhaps you can introduce a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how it has been thus far.
Oh God, that on its own is like a couple of hours, but I'll keep it as short as I can. Well, like Thomas said,
my name
is Susanne. I am a Dutchie living in Scotland. I'm a mother of two and a wife, and I have my own business, the Grand Method or Grand Method Coaching. And I support companies as well as individuals on their journey of redefining success so we can have a better work-life balance. And like you elegantly put at the beginning, research shows how beneficial it is for you as a person, as well as, of course, the bottom line for a company, if we're talking about profits and such. So what would you like to know?
So how did you begin on this journey itself? Why did you decide to specialize in work-life balance? Were you doing something before that? What was the transformation and how you become who you are today?
No, that is a very good question because that's actually, an important part of my journey. I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, when I was 17 after quite a traumatic childhood. So for me, the whole struggle of mental health, anxiety, triggers, everything from sound to noise, sound to smells, stuff like that. It was really interesting, let's put it like that, to be able to manage everyday life and just being able to study and focus and sleep at all, because for over a decade I didn't sleep more than 3 hours per night. So as you can imagine, that has a lot of impact on your general well-being and tied in with a lot of allergies for me. So health had to become a priority for me, otherwise I simply couldn't function anymore. And it wasn't until I was around 25 I started to realize that it was definitely not working anymore, and decided to take time off. I had a corporate job at the time and I just needed a break, and that was scary to do nothing. When I luckily was in a position that my bills were paid, so it wasn't on the line of poverty or anything, so I was well looked after. But just to be able to be alone with my own thoughts and do nothing. Well, you're so trained, right? For you go to school, you work, you're always busy. And then to do nothing. Can't say at the beginning I coped quite well, but over the time it increases. And it wasn't until I moved from the Netherlands to Scotland that I realized there was still quite a big of a gap between female rights, equality, because in the Netherlands, it's quite a privileged country. You got a lot of opportunities, especially the way the education system is set up. It's mostly free, so it's affordable for many. And so I paid my own university fees. Was just a couple of $1,000 a year with the books. It's not like some universities where you have to pay like 50 grand just to attend. Luckily, that's all done, set up very well in the Netherlands. But as I moved, I noticed a real difference. So after I gave birth to my first child, I decided to start providing women with the support I missed when I went through it as myself. And I realized quickly that you can empower women all you want, but if you don't look at the system or the person surrounding them, there's no amount of women empowering you can do. So hence my shift to working with women after they give birth, have their family, have their job, or have their own business. And how do you manage all these different aspects of your life? And personally, I don't have a preference for gender, so it's not like you can only work with me if you feel, or you claim to be a woman or whatever. If you are not non-gender or gender fluid, or if you resonate with my work, everyone is welcome. It's just obviously through my own journey, it's a relatable topic to talk about. So that's why I now work with companies, especially on work-life balance, because it's still very much an equal rights issue. It's equal opportunity. It's really about giving women the opportunity, because we may only be like 51% of the population, but we do give birth to everyone on this planet. So it's quite a big target audience if you're just going to say, well, we ignore all of you, and then because I believe if women get support, children will benefit, partners will benefit, so communities will benefit. And I think a lot of issues we're currently seeing will either significantly reduce or completely resolve as a result of it. So that's why, with my own background and my experience, and through the healing journey I discovered on my mental health, my physical health, I now provide mostly women, not all, the support to redefine what success means to them. Because I don't know about you, but we tend to be fixated on the numbers, right? How much you weigh on the scale, or how much target you hit.
I will feel that badly.
But if you're say you live a healthy rich life for the next 60 years, are you really gonna pass away and think, I wish I weighed 10 kilo less? Or are you gonna resent the opportunities or things you didn't create for yourself? And so that's why it's so important that you're honest with how you're feeling. And in my experience, we don't get taught enough how to listen to what we want, instead of that constant social conditioning or cultural conditioning of, this is how you're supposed to be. You're a guy, so therefore you need to be in this, or need to do that. And a lot of people are absolutely miserable because of it, because they're trying to fit that format, and it breaks you at some point, doesn't it? And I experienced that firsthand, and so it's not always easy, obviously, because I do quite direct to the point and hardcore soul searching work with people, right? So it's not for the faint-hearted. You really need to be ready to be honest with yourself and say, look, this is clearly not working. There's only so many hours in a day. I feel exhausted. I don't sleep. I've got all kinds of stress-related health issues going on. What can I do? And that's what I deal with.
That's why I love your work, because at the end of the day, we only have one life, and we want to live life to the fullest. And that's why it's very important for us to balance that life with our work itself. Or 50 years from now, we may have earned a lot of wealth, but when we look back, we regret because we do not spend enough quality time with our loved one, do not get to do what we want to do, do not achieve our dreams. So this is really a very amazing topic. And I think in competitive society such as mine, burnout, stress.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Yes, it's very, very common. So this is really a very important topic. And let's dive in,
yes.
So ladies and gentlemen, before we go into the main question, if you are here with us, if you are watching, do say hi, do say hello. If you have any questions, input into the chat so that we can give you as much value as we can. And do give this live lots of thumbs up, share it out so that more people can learn from it. All right, so Susanna, going into the first question itself, what is your definition of work-life balance?
For me personally, it's not between just work and life, right? Because in the end, we all just have life, and work is part of it. It's how you define how you want your life to be on all areas of your life. So spiritually, mentally, physically, spiritually, you know, all these elements that make you you. Are they getting enough of your attention? So for example, if you just spend all your time at work, so you get that mentally getting that stimulation, right? Yet you never take enough time to spend, for example, with your loved ones. So that means you're emotionally depleted. And so it's looking at all these areas of your life and then creating a system or a schedule that supports you with realization that you as a person change, as well as that your needs and requirement change. Because of course, we've seen it in a global pandemic. It's all nice to have a schedule, but it's not going to work if, you know, life throws you a curveball, of course. And you are stuck at home or wherever you were or still are. So there's also a bit of flexibility required to make this work. And like you say, with you know, high achieving, goal-driven societies, there's a lot of pressure on performing, right? Because you need to be up here. Yet things like, you know, burnout costs or turnover costs or health-related costs. So for example, here in the UK, where I am just now, just on a yearly basis, 70 million mental health days get taken by employees. So it's not just like physically, like you have a cold or a flu or something days, just for mental well-being. That costs on a yearly basis 2.4 billion pounds for people to, you know, have space to cope with whatever's going on in their lives. Obviously, if we find a way where people don't need to constantly take time off because they have the ways to cope with the current situation, whether that's financial or, you know, they have a sick parent or a child, or they're sick, you know, themselves going through things. These are all costs we can either significantly reduce or completely avoid. But that's the long-term versus short-term thinking. And what you notice it as well, obviously, you know, I've worked for a bank myself. I've been in the corporate environment myself. It's that short-term numbers game, right? We're focused on this goal we need to take, and you know, and don't care how much it takes you. But on the other hand, people are leaving, staff's going, and there's a lot of extra expenses, extra training, extra. So it's a short-term versus long-term thinking, and as mentioned in the beginning as well, you really can see the difference between when people feel well, they are much more productive, and I'm sure you can relate to that. If you had a good night's sleep and you wake up like, yes, right? You sometimes have those days that you're like, ooh, let's get out of bed and get my things going. You will achieve much quicker the things you're trying to do. They will be much better quality. So that's why research shows that productivity actually goes up. And on top of that, you save these extra costs long term. So yeah, it's fascinating how it all ties together. And I was looking into, you know, the history of the 5-day work week versus the 4-day work week, and we've been almost doing the 5-day work week here in because I know not all countries have that in their culture, but we've been doing it almost for 100 years this way. And the 40-hour per week, so the 5-day work week, was timed was designed at a time where the assumption was that someone else will be looking after the children, doing the cleaning and doing the cooking. So if you work full time and then want to be an active partner who, if you have children, spends time with the children, and be an active parent, being involved. If you find yourself that you're not managing to make that all fit, it's because the way this was designed, it wasn't meant to fit. It was meant to be based on gender stereotypes. One person works, one person does the rest, and we're trying to do all of it together. And that's why we're now seeing these burnout rates and all these things drastically go up in numbers.
Very nice. There's a lot of wisdom right there. And what you mentioned is true, because sometimes the companies fail to balance between short-term gains and long-term productivity itself. A lot of time they were pushing their employees, their salespeople, their service provider forward so that they can bring in more profit. But the issue of doing that is that there will be more turnover rate. And when there's more turnover rate, they need to recruit again and then train again, and that's additional expenses. So in the long run, it actually reduces, it affects their resources, their time, their profitability. But a lot of companies fail to establish that vision itself, and that's why there's the culture of
and that's where the redefining success comes in. Yes, yeah.
Right.
I think on average it's a third of the yearly salary that it costs for people to be turned over. So if you do that with one role 3 times, you're already double in the expenses, right?
Yeah, so it does long-term damages, and that's why this is a very important topic, not just for us and our mental well-being, but businesses out there, those of you who are running companies. If you want your companies to stay profitable for a long run, you want your employees to be with you for a long run, you want to create a very positive and conducive work environment, this is something for you to integrate. All right, so earlier on we were mentioning about work balance, how we can a work-life balance, how we can integrate our work and our life together. Are there specific areas of your life that you want to develop the self-awareness to ensure that they are not being neglected? Do you have a framework, like perhaps a relationship, family time, finances, out of the work itself? Do you have a framework for that, or what's your approach to it?
Well, the way I approach it, it's part of the grand method, right? So it's the first step that I take with my clients, that I do a strategy session with them where we really dive into what does a successful life look like to you. So not what your parents think, not what your brother thinks, not what your neighbor down the street thinks that ever made a comment about what you're looking at or wearing or whatever. What do you want to do with your life? And that's such a personal experience that it's often the most scary thing to go there, to go, you know what? I don't want to buy a big, massive house and pay mortgage for the rest of my life. I actually, I just want to travel the world in a camper van and, take my laptop and work from there. And then to actually go do that. As I say, it takes an extra large set of balls, right? to actually go for something like that. So the important step is to the framework is to redefine what success looks like for you, and that's, like I said, that's a really unique process. Second step is looking into the mindset. So, for example, like you say, you live in a society where they're really goal driven. Of course, there's nothing wrong with going after your goals and going, making things that you want to achieve work for you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm all for, putting in the work and creating the dreams you want, right? But if it's coming at the expense of your health or your relationships, including the relationship you have with yourself. So if you have a lot of negative self-talk and stuff like that, that falls on that as well. It's not going to be sustainable long term. So do you want to, for example, start up a business and you're like, let's do this, right? Let's work 100 hours per week for the next 3 years. You're coming at some point, you're going to hit that spot when you're burnt out. Unless you're like a superhero who has like 3 times more energy than the rest of us. There is a point where your body's going to go, no. So that's the real question. Do you want to just be short-term, putting in more hours, which is perfectly fine? Or do you want this business and to reap the benefits over say 10 years from now. And you can't work yourself into a burnout and create a business that you want and have the benefits from it long term if you're, on a burnout or had a heart attack or worse. Because there are people who literally just drop dead because of the amount of stress their body is experiencing. So that's why in the second phase, I work with my clients to look into these patterns they believe. And often it comes through a generational pattern. So for example, from your parents or your grandparents or, people you grew up with, the things like, in order to be successful, you need to have a fancy degree. Or in order to be successful, you need to, work hard because otherwise you're not worth it. And there are all kinds of beliefs that and stories we tell ourselves. And of course, if you want to redefine success and go, but I still need to work hard, you're going to constantly trip over that point, right? So that's why I help my clients with that mindset shift and the generational work. And I'm really good at pinpointing in your energy where that belief sit, and then we updated it to, as I say, to a 21st century belief that actually supports your vision. And then in the last phase, we look at systems and structures. So there's, of course, a lot of technology available nowadays. So just to give you a simple example, I worked with a client. She was a spiritual coach, so she did a lot of healing work with like angels and that kind of stuff. So perfect if you're into that, of course. But she was still making all her appointments manually. And she, of course, wanted an easy business, more fun, less time for focusing on all these kind of things. But yeah, she was so busy, she didn't have the time to step back, or at least that's what she told herself, to look into software that could help her. So together, we set up her software system. So now she can just send the link to her customers that were, all around the world. And I think we calculated the other day, it was about 20 hours per month she saved just by not having to constantly go back and forth.
Wow.
And it is those simple things that, but if you're in the midst of it and you're so busy, you're not going to go, wow, let's take the day off and look at all the software that's out there, right? But that's the tricky thing. Because we're so busy, we don't make time for things that are important for us. And that's a vicious cycle to be in. And that's why, health, relationships, all these things are going down, 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 because you never have the time, because there's always something else more important if you believe that that's the way it has to be. So these three elements have to come together, because there's no amount of, empowering I can do if you still believe you have to suffer in order to make, just a few bucks. Then, yeah, that's the thing. You have to be honest about yourself. Say, look, there are enough people in this world who actually have it easier. Well, if they can figure it out, so can I.
Very, very nice. I really love Susanna's approach in terms of helping her clients achieve work-life balance. So for those of you who miss it, there are 3 stages to it. The first stage is to work with the clients to allow them to truly define what is a successful life to them, what they truly desire. It's not just the income, not just spending quality time, not just achieving their dreams, but something that they really truly desire. Not societal expectation or anything, but what is their real definition of success, because everyone is different. And then stage 2, it's about identifying and removing the limiting belief, because many of us, we have limiting beliefs, perhaps due to societal influence, due to our environment, or maybe due to just blind pursuit itself. After which, she will work, stage 3, she will work with her clients to implement systems and strategies so that they can achieve that life that they want, the success that they desire, the true work-life balance. Very, very beautiful step. Did I got that right, Susanna?
You nailed it. Like awesome. I said it myself. Well done.
Very, very nice. And I think this approach can truly help to dive into the client's mindset, as well as what they can take action on, the true action to take for them to achieve what they want to achieve, which is that work-life balance. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm seeing many of you streaming in. That's great. If you are here with us, say hi, say hello. give lots of thumbs up, share it out so that more people can learn from this session. And if you have any questions, do input into the chat. In fact, I just saw a question earlier by Paul, which asked something along the line of, does work-life balance means retiring at age 60 or perhaps earlier? Well, I mean, if that is your definition, then work towards it. But some people, they may want to work the rest of their life because they love their work so much and that is part of their life itself. Well, individual. And that's why I really love Susanna's definition of work-life balance, because everyone will have a different definition. It is what you measure it as. The true success is something that you truly desire. If you want to spend more quality time, that's your definition of success, then work towards that. Love it. All right, so now moving on to the next question itself. We all know the importance of achieving work-life balance, but what are some of the common reasons stopping people from achieving work-life balance? Based on your experience, based on your clients, what are some of the common reasons that stop them from working towards it, despite desiring it?
I think the biggest two is that not believing it's possible, because then it's not possible, and two, that they are too busy. So that's what I just explained as well. If you're too busy to even be able to think about these elements that I just suggested you think about, it's like, it feels like the most impossible thing that woman on your screen is asking, right? And and that's the tricky thing, because we're all so stuck in that too busy cycle. It's realizing that you are effectively self-sabotaging yourself long term. So the thing I usually ask my clients, because obviously I work with busy people, right? Because a lot of people are busy, but I work with like really busy people. And the real question is, can you make 5 minutes of time available, whether it's this week or just today, just to have a moment, just to be, just to think, because we're human beings, we're not human doings. It's it's essential to what it is that you want to create, that you make time just to reflect and to feel, is this good? This is where I'm at. This is where I want to go, and allow yourself, every day just to take a step forward. It doesn't need to be like, I want to hit all my targets tomorrow and it needs to be done. It's giving yourself the grace just to, let it unfold, step by step. And in that also comes having enough rest. Because like I said earlier, rest, whether that's, you got like 7 different types of rest, right? So it's besides just sleeping, it's also like emotional rest, it's like creative rest, it's like sensory rest. So if you don't, like the earplugs on and the screens and that kind of stuff, our bodies need that rest. We need to be grounded to the earth. We need that in order to feel good, and that's usually the last thing we do. And I encourage people, how about it's the first thing you do, so you feel great, because everything you do after that will be of much better quality. The results will be better. You have much more inspired ideas. You will meet people in a much different way. You get the best from people. And if everyone would look after themselves in that kind of way, where everyone feels like, their heart's overflowing and we're getting those needs met, can you imagine what the difference that will be on a global scale? Then every one of us, or at least most of us, will feel like they're in a good place. So that's my mission in life, but I still have some work cut out for me, of course.
Yes, and I would certainly love for you to succeed in this mission, because so many people, in my opinion, have been suffering from work, and that is really a very sad thing, because work, more often than not, is one of the activities that we do most in our life. And if they are suffering at doing it, then they will not live life to the fullest. And that is something that we really have to spread the message. And I really thank you for being part of this, to really endorse and advocate about work-life balance. And I can see that you personally have benefited from it, your transformation from corporate job to right now, balancing family, business, and everything coming together. Very, very amazing. All right, so earlier on, we were mentioning that some people, they may be too busy, right? Maybe they have a lot of work. What is your solution to that? Do you feel that sometimes it is just them busy being busy, or maybe they are not productive, that's why they have to spend more hours? Or what are some of your experience with this and how you solve that situation?
Well, not to offend everyone here, but if I'm working with people like in corporate jobs, often, not always, it's because they don't know how to effectively manage their time. Because like I said, with the third step, right, there are systems and structures we can put in place. So obviously it's as a mom myself, I know how busy life can get. I've got 2 small children, so they need like my full-time attention. Of course, my husband is away with his job. It gets crazy at times, right? So, but there's a lot of time when I work with people, the time that we do have, we don't always use in the most effective way. So we kind of just, it's on my to-do list, so I just go do, just everything, and then, I'll just get quickly, and then I'll just, you're all over the place. But I challenge my clients to think, so why is it on your to-do list in the first place? Does it really need doing? Or is it something you can outsource? Or is it like, is it something you need to be doing? Because of course, if you're in a job, right, it's just because it's there doesn't need to be done. Is it something you can automate, like the client example I just gave with the calendar? Because of course, in her case, of course, she still needed to get it done, because otherwise she doesn't have any clients booked in. But if you just take the time to get the structure in place, in her case, that saved her 20 hours per week of going back and forth and missed appointments and recalculating what, the Australian or the US time zone was for her, etc. So it's learning how to effectively use the time you do have. And I like to use the approach that's from the book, The One Thing. So what's the one thing you can do today that has the biggest impact? Because the funny thing is, in the English language, the word priorities didn't exist until a few decades ago. It used to be a singular word, as in priority. There's only one thing that can be your priority right now. And we get, in our culture now, it's like, you have got a list of 20 priorities. No, that's not how this works. And that's, of course, I don't know if you've ever had days at work and you just feel like you've talked to everyone and you got absolutely nothing done that day, right? Those kind of days is what I'm talking about. So what I help my clients figure out is, if you want to achieve your goals based on, your definition of success, that can, of course, also be part of team targets or company targets, etc. But what's the number one thing you can do that has the biggest impact for this which you're trying to do, which ties in with, I don't know if you're familiar with the 20-80 rule or 80-20, I never know which way around it is, but for the 20% of the activities produce 80% of the results. So if you do the 20% first, you've got 80% done. And of course, from an emotional perspective, that's gonna feel way more satisfying than just doing everything at random. So it's about creating the awareness of how am I using my time as well as my energy, because your body, of course, has a certain amount of energy to create the biggest results, the biggest impacts. And for big projects, I'll break it down. Of course, if I usually give the example of building a website. It's not just website done, right? So it's talking to the customer, what do they want? It's about setting up the structure. It's about starting to fill in the page. It's about, if you work with a copywriter, getting the right copy, getting the right photo. So it's all these steps. So in this example, you're starting out, the biggest impact before you begin is setting an appointment with the client to go talk to them, right? You don't start at the end. So it's just the understanding your own personal process on how it is that you achieve things and working towards the things you want to achieve, of course. So that's the question to ask yourself every day. What's the number one thing I can do? And because if that's done, everything else is a bonus, right?
Very nice, very nice. Really love that theme itself, right? A lot
And
of
it's a
time.
good book if you want to read it.
Yes, and I think that's a very amazing strategy, because when we look at the list of works that we supposedly have to do, it's just a couple which will truly move the needle, which is truly the impactful task. And we want to prioritize that. We want to focus on that, because as humans, we have limited energy, attention, and time. So we want to focus on things that will really deliver results. And I think that is a very good way to achieve the balance itself, because once you have done it, the rest of it, you can take it at a slower pace, because you have achieved most of what you have done already. Very nice.
Exactly.
All right, so we do have a question here, and I think it's quite a good question. It is with regards to unreasonable boss. Okay, so I guess some of us, or in fact many of us, we may have ever experienced these, things such as unreasonable boss, toxic work environment, quarreling with colleagues. So in this situation, it is somewhat like the staff work 10 hours during the day as a result of work from home, and late at night, the boss texts the staff for another report, which actually takes 4 hours to compile, which is needed for the next morning's meeting. In such situation, what is recommended? In fact, I think this is just one of
that's
the
tricky.
scenario,
It really is tricky.
Boss.
Yeah.
And I think there are many different examples of unreasonable boss and toxic work culture. So in such instances, what are your recommendations?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So this is the one you have to feel out yourself, because obviously I'm not trying to get you fired here, but it's some bosses really don't understand the whole personal boundaries. You need your rest and that kind of stuff. Because I'm just reading the comment here, is that it's if you're the phone it's been sent on, is that a personal phone or is that a work phone? Because if it's a work phone, you can turn it off and you automatically set a boundary there. It's like, yeah, sorry, my work day is off, because obviously I can't see that in the comments, but that might be a handy way to set boundaries, that if you're using apps or devices from work, I know there's some kinds of apps you can install that they don't come through, right? So I say you work from, I don't know, 10 to 5, and so at 5 p.m. you don't get those notifications anymore. And that might just be an easy way to set a boundary. And then when the guy says, I'm sorry, but I turned my phone off. I was done working for that day. My rest is important.
Yeah, and I do agree. Sometimes we really need to.
It's tricky. I have to admit.
Although it's our work, our employees and stuff, if we truly want to benefit the company, we need to set the boundaries. Because if we don't set the boundaries, our mental well-being, our productivity, our attention will be affected. And in the long run, like what we have discussed earlier, it is the downside of the company itself. So I think a lot of time people may be afraid to set the boundary, but I do really encourage, in fact, that it is really important, because at the end of the day, you have to prioritize your own well-being before you can provide for the well-being of the company itself.
Yeah. And like I said, some companies really don't get it. So I understand that if you're in a toxic work environment, that long term it's not sustainable, and that's why a lot of companies, and we saw in the States as well, they called it the Great Resignation of 2021. Love the name, by the way. That there are just a lot of people saying, like, I'm not doing this anymore. So it's tricky to navigate, but obviously if it doesn't change, it might be worth going on LinkedIn to see if there's any other local jobs available with companies who have
totally
better. But yeah, it's sometimes the best you can do for yourself is create an exit strategy, and in the meantime look after yourself. And if there's a staff meeting, you might address it, say, look, but that's again, that's a feeling, right? If you feel like it's safe to talk about these things, but some companies don't create that safe space where you can actually talk about these things. So it's obviously with the example, it's I don't know enough to give too much detailed information, but you need to find and balance and see what you can do in the boundary setting and looking after yourself. And the easiest excuse is always to say, yeah, my battery was dead.
Yeah, very well said. And
turn it off, or
exactly. That's the thing we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day, is it worth it? And that's why stage one of Susanna's process is to ask ourselves, what is our definition of a successful work-life balance lifestyle? Because some people's definition may be getting extremely high salary, that it doesn't matter if they are working additional hours. So in such situation, it may fit that person because it is aligned with his definition of success.
Absolutely.
Yes, I may have to work overnight, but I get a high salary. But some people, their priority may be quality time, rest, well balanced between work and personal life. Then that job itself perhaps is not a good fit, right? And then that's where considerations of exiting, etc., will be considered. So that's why it's very important that at stage one is really that self-awareness. What do you want to achieve?
What do you want from this job? Yeah.
Exactly. I know some people who love working, they can work overnight because they love their job so much.
Absolutely. I've got no problem with that. Like I said, if it fills your soul right and makes your heart sing, then by all means go for it. But like you say, with the job that at the 10 p.m. you still send the message, that's not healthy, and it's long term. It's gonna harm the bottom line of the company. So if you have the guts to address that with a manager like that, and then like I said, I understand it's tricky, then make them understand that it's actually costing them money long term to put in requests like that because of health related absence costs, bottom line. And there's enough research available online that you can actually put some numbers on that or statistics. That for example, we have a team of 10, this is how much time everyone takes off, this is how much it costs, and with how many people are leaving, this is how much you could save if you look after your people well. Yeah, that's
very
that's quite a statement to make to your manager, which I get.
Yeah, we want to create a win-win situation. I mean,
yes,
on our side, we get a work-life balance, but the companies and the businesses benefit from it as well in terms of long-term sustainability and profit. So it's a win-win situation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's barely 45 minutes and we are learning so much already. So if you have more questions, do input into the chat because we want to give you as much value as we can. And do give this live lots of thumbs up, share it out so that more people can learn on this very important topic about work-life balance. By now, we have established that it is truly something that we have to work towards because we want to live life to the fullest. All right, so Susanna, I'm not sure have you been in this scenario before, but sometimes when we are too engrossed in our work, we tend to forget about other areas of our life. Time seems to fly so quickly and we forget to maybe focus a little bit on our health, or sometimes we just have cheaper but unhealthy alternative in terms of food. And it is out of the lack of awareness, because sometimes we are too focused on something, these things tend to be neglected, or we just forget about the importance of it. And personally, for me, it is fitness for my growing roundness. So what is your recommendation to develop that form of self-awareness and having action plan to integrate it into part of our life?
Yeah, it's obviously a great feeling, right? When you can just get sucked into work like that and you're like on your flow doing things, and then it's like, oh, what happened to the time, right?
One day is gone.
So if that always happens to you and you miss important appointments and that kind of stuff, I recommend like using your phone to set a timer. So maybe like 50 minutes before you're supposed to leave, it goes off, and then the second timer goes off when you actually have to go, so you can wrap up the thing you're working on and then actually get your ass out of there. And the biggest thing with if that's you, it's planning is gonna be useful, whether that's like meal planning, that you like once a week, put your chef hats on and get some yummy food going that you can keep if you have a freezer or something already to keep it cool. That might be beneficial, but really plan in these bits for looking after yourself, because we tend to go, we do work first and then we do the rest, right? But it usually is when work's done, you're like, nah, I don't want to anymore. I'm done with it. I'll do it tomorrow. I'm sure that to some or complete degree agrees with you, Thomas, because I know I've got that too, right? You're all done with the day and like, yeah, tomorrow. And then tomorrow, it's always tomorrow. So if you can either start with it first thing in the morning. So if it's like 15 minutes earlier, and you can just have, and it doesn't need to be like here, they've got those cooked breakfasts, right? So the proper British breakfasts, like with sausages and beans and bacon and eggs, like a big, massive kind of breakfast. That won't fit in my tummy, it's way too much. But if you want to have a breakfast, it can be as simple as in just getting a good nut and seed bar with some fresh orange or something, right? So they're all small things, and I prefer to make things as easy as you can for yourself. So if obviously I have no idea what you guys have available in the supermarkets over there, so I'm just giving random examples, but maybe there's some local fruit that they sell pre-cut, and you can get that for the first thing in the morning. So you have nice yummy fruit in the morning, you do some workout, and then you go to work. And even if that's just 15 minutes, you can do 15 minutes, right? That sounds reasonable. Not agree?
It is whether we have the discipline of doing it or not. I think discipline is also a major factor.
And then that's the mindset shift that's needed.
It's important, but another day.
But that's what I found with the short term versus the long term thinking. So the short term is like, I'm not feeling like it right now, it's another day. But then interrupt your own pattern and say, but what do I want to achieve long term? Will this contribute or not? And then make your decision. So if you wake up in the morning and think, look, I don't feel like it now, but if for my long-term goal, say for next month, this would really be beneficial. Would I like to do it anyway? And by just putting in that pattern interrupt where you question yourself, like, no, Thomas. No. We talked about this the other day with Susanne. What do I want to achieve long term, and will this idea contribute to that? And if you then take action, you will see a lot of results, of course, long term. But it's recognizing the short term versus the long term thinking within yourself. And I've got it too, right? And especially with my children, that they're really small. I'm pooped by the end of the day. It's just I'm done. So I can completely relate to just when you just sometimes you just want to park your butt and rest, right? I get it, absolutely. But it's for me, it really helps to question myself and say, look, so I want to achieve this. I don't know. Say you want to do gardening, right? So I've got a beautiful vegetable garden in the house we just moved here. Right before lockdown started. If I want to have vegetables in the summer and I've got seeds planted in my greenhouse, I can't have to water them. So that means if it's raining and it's coming down, and I live in Scotland, trust me, the weather gets bad here. I'm gonna have to go through it, get wet and water my greenhouse so I can have plants long term. So do I want to get wet and go through the rain? No. If it's nice and cozy inside. But is it worth long term? Yes. So make your decision based on that. So what do you want to achieve on long-term goal? And that I find it makes it much easier just to go something that you're originally maybe a bit hesitant to, but it's long-term beneficial. So especially if with food choices, if you know some things really energize you, make you feel better, and some things that make you a bit sluggish or like, drain my energy a bit. Of course, your body might say no, but just go for the sluggish one. It's more tasty, right? Just an example. But if you now think about, well, long-term, this is also nice, and it also will help me feel energized today. So let's go with that one. And it's just enough to help you break these patterns and make these long-term decision that short-term will benefit you immensely. So it's, like I said, I like to break things down and make it simple. So
yeah, and I think that will be very effective, always have that long-term vision. And I think that's what our guest here today is really very good at. We need to look at the end result, the long-term result, rather than just short-term temporary satisfaction. It is just the same as businesses who are chasing profit. Yes, it feels amazing to get so much profit in the short term itself, but long term, is it sustainable? And that's what Susanne is good at, which is asking the questions that matter in the long run. Because at the end of the day, life is not a sprint, but it's a marathon itself.
Yes.
And that's the self-motivated. Very, very nice.
You get it.
Love.
My work here is done.
That's very powerful, and I think that will be life-changing for the people out there as well. Amazing. So now that we have talked about the hustling part, the working part, for you, what are some of your practices when it comes to resting and rejuvenating?
Well, I think there are a couple of things I do. Like I mentioned previously, I'm really sensitive to energies, and I got a number of allergies as well. So if I don't look after myself, I am not in a good place, right? So for me, really, the self-care has to come first in order to be able to function. So obviously, I discovered that the hard way. So there are a number of things I need to do, and I noticed the last few months as well that I use my phone a bit more in the evenings, and for like a month I could not sleep, and I was like, what's going on? So the other day I was talking to my husband. It's like, I want us to just cut off screen time, right? So no TV, no Netflix, no quick check your phone or your messages, an hour of nothing. Well, where we live in Scotland, it gets like proper dark at night, because I've lived in cities before. Then the skies is like kind of pink, right? But if you can, because our brains need that sensory rest, that rest from light, it can be really beneficial if you're not sleeping well, just to turn off the devices and just if the air allows it, because I know some cities it doesn't, but open a window and just stand there for just see if you can hear any birdies or fresh air, and just allow your body to get that rest. Because when you go to sleep, your brain's not that busy, that all over the place, right? For me, I also then do meditations at night. So it's just a sensory rest, and I do the meditation, and then I go to sleep. I actually sleep on something that's called a grounding sheet. I started doing that earlier this year after seeing the documentary from an electrical engineer. It's called Earthing. Because I noticed at night I often I felt really anxious, like uncomfortable with my skin, and it was like, not pleasant. And especially nowadays, we live in a lot of buildings, we don't have enough contact for nature and kind of things. So I saw the documentary. It's available on YouTube if you have access to that. Have a look. It was fascinating research, and it basically says that as human beings, because we're like electrical beings, right, we have our nervous system and all of it, we need to ground, and that sheet allows me to sleep as if I'm lying on the ground, because it's connected into our main electricity thing, which then of course goes to the grounding bit. I have no idea if you can get that from where you guys are watching it, but for me, it done such an amazing difference on my health. And just I used to get like joint pains as well, just the niggles and the soreness, that all cleared away. So if this like, oh, this sounds interesting, go watch the documentary. It's an hour and a bit. It's really interesting, and they lay out all the research and the benefits on that. So I think that's the biggest things for me. So enough rest and no screen time, make sure enough grounded, and on top of that, get enough movement and nutrition. That's really the base. And I think that's basically for any human being. You need to drink enough. You need to eat stuff that supports your unique body. Move enough, because we're not meant to sit, 24/7 behind a computer. And from there, design the way you want your life to be. And I get that you may be at a point right now that you're like, yeah, but that's the easy way of to say. I'm like, I've got this horrible boss and things. Trust me, I get it. But that's why it's so important that, you acknowledge where you're at, but also know where you want to go, because there are, new jobs, opportunities. If you talk to people, say, look, I'm looking for something new. You never know. People might know someone. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was talking about wanting to do more speaking opportunities like this, because I love doing this, and I want to do more talks on this in like corporate and business environments. And he said, oh, and my friend does this for a living. She books people. So it is like, oh, let me set you up, right? And I would never have been able to get that introduction if I wouldn't have talked about what my goals are with that friend. So that's why, again, it comes back to redefining success. What it is that you want to achieve. So you may not be able to go from where you are just now to where you want to be tomorrow. I realize that, obviously, but it doesn't mean that 6 months from now, a year from now, you can't have a fantastic new boss who doesn't text you in the middle of the night for some lame ass work report that can wait until the morning, right? Or just have a new place where you can stay that works better for you as a person. The opportunities are endless, but first you need to decide what it is that you actually want to create.
Very, very nice. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, if you have missed any part of the interview, do watch the replay, because Susanne here have given us a wealth of tips and techniques where we can truly achieve the work-life balance that we want and live life to the fullest. So it's barely an hour and we have learned so much from Susanne already. So Susanne, if we want to learn more from you, if we want to connect with you, how can we do so? Yes, the book, share a little bit about it.
Of course. Well, I don't know if you can read it. It's nice and subtle like I am. So it's Drop the Envy Struggle. This one is specifically aimed at female business owners, managers, team leaders, etc. Just because I describe a lot about the female conditioning on it. It doesn't mean that if you're binary or gender fluid or a man, you can't read it. Principle is the same, but obviously that chapter on gender conditioning is slightly bit less relevant, but it may help you get some understanding of other people in your life, of course. But this book is available via dropthestruggle.co.uk. I am mostly on LinkedIn. So if you're active on LinkedIn, look for Susanne Grant. Make sure you type in correctly Susanne, because it's the Dutch spelling. And I have a website, grantmethod.com, and I've got a quiz on there if you're interested. And if you're self-employed or you have your own business, because the quiz isn't specifically for people who work for someone else, you can uncover your own success strategy that I also describe in the book, and see how your mindset, your hardworking patterns, how that fits in, and you get your own success, personalized success strategy. And of course, you're on my email list. So if I have wonderful speaking events like with Thomas today, you will be the first to know. But yeah, do reach out, get my book. It's an international best-selling book, and I'm getting a lot of amazing feedback from people. I actually heard yesterday that the first one is going to be shipped to Africa. So I'm like super excited about it. It's like now officially on every continent there's a copy sold. So it's worth getting it if my message resonates with you. And if it's not, that's fine too.
Very nice. I do highly encourage all of you to connect with Susanne, get her book, outreach to her, connect with her on social media. All the links are already in this post. She gives a lot of content, a lot of value on achieving work-life balance. And that's why if you want to learn more about this topic, if you want to be a practitioner of this, do connect with her, and I'm sure you can benefit so much more from her. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. And of course, a big thank you to Susanne for her generous sharing. Really learned so much about this very, very important topic about achieving work-life balance. All right, so thanks for coming, everyone. See you around. Goodbye.
Bye.